There are people who become famous because they can sing. And then there are people who become unforgettable because they can make millions of strangers feel exactly what they are feeling. Kelly Clarkson has always been the second kind. For more than 2 decades, her voice has filled arenas, award shows, television studios, and living rooms across America. She has won Grammys, built a daytime television empire, headlined Las Vegas, sold millions of records, and turned one audition into one of the most unlikely success stories in pop culture history. But the Kelly Clarkson standing today is not simply the woman who won American Idol. She is a mother who survived a public divorce, a woman who watched private pain become public entertainment, an artist who turned heartbreak into music, a performer who kept smiling for cameras while trying to build a new life for her children. And now, after years of being managed, marketed, and defined by other people's expectations, she appears to be entering the most independent chapter of her entire career. Because beneath the fortune, the homes, the awards, and the sold-out crowds is a far more powerful story. This is not really the story of how Kelly Clarkson became rich. It is the story of how she kept her voice when life kept giving her reasons to lose it. Before the talk show, before Las Vegas, before the Grammys, before the headlines about her marriage and divorce, there was a girl from Texas who did not come from privilege or industry connections. Kelly Brienne Clarkson was born in Fort Worth, Texas, and raised in nearby Burleson. She grew up in a working-class family, the youngest of 3 children, in a home that changed forever when her parents divorced while she was still very young. That early fracture mattered. Years later, Kelly would become known for singing songs about heartbreak with a kind of force that felt almost too personal to be performed. Songs like Because of You, Piece by Piece, and Already Gone did not sound like polished pop exercises. They sounded lived in. They sound like someone who understood that love could be beautiful, but it could also leave a mark. As a kid, though, music was not necessarily the master plan. Kelly had interests that moved in every direction: writing, art, even marine biology. But then a middle school choir teacher heard her singing in the hallway and urged her to join choir. It was one of those tiny moments that seems ordinary at the time, until years later, when you realize it changed everything. By the time she graduated high school, people around her knew she had something rare. She had offers for college scholarships, but Kelly chose a different path. She moved to Los Angeles to chase music. It did not go the way people imagined success stories going. There were failed demo opportunities, financial stress, rejection, and at one point, a fire destroyed her apartment. The dream that had seemed so close suddenly looked impossible. Kelly eventually returned to Texas, broke, discouraged, and far from the future people now associate with her. That is the part of the story people often forget. Before Kelly Clarkson became a household name, she was someone who had already watched a dream collapse once. And then in 2002, she walked into an audition room for a brand new television competition called American Idol. Nobody knew what the show would become. Nobody knew that reality television was about to create an entirely new kind of celebrity. And nobody knew that the young woman from Burleson, Texas, with a huge voice and nervous smile, would become the first winner of a franchise that would change music forever. Kelly did not arrive with a polished celebrity persona. She was funny, awkward, warm, direct, and visibly overwhelmed by the scale of what was happening. That was part of why audiences connected with her. She did not feel manufactured. She felt like someone who had been handed an impossible opportunity and was trying not to let it slip away. When she won, the world expected the usual reality show story: a quick hit, a debut album, a few months of attention, and then a fade into nostalgia. Instead, Kelly became something much bigger. Her first single, A Moment Like This, exploded. Her debut album, Thankful, opened at #1. But it was Breakaway that transformed her from a television winner into a real pop force. Since You've Been Gone, Behind These Hazel Eyes, Because of You, Breakaway. Those were not just songs. They became part of people's lives. Kelly had crossed a line that many reality stars never could. She was no longer famous because she had won a competition. She was famous because she had earned a place in the soundtrack of an entire generation. And yet, even as her career grew, there was something about Kelly that never fully changed. She still spoke like a person who remembered where she came from. She laughed at herself. She cried easily. She admitted when life was difficult. In an industry built on image control, Kelly's greatest asset was that she often seemed incapable of pretending. That honesty would become even more important later, when the perfect-looking life she had built began to come apart. For years, Kelly Clarkson and Brandon Blackstock appear to have the kind of relationship fans wanted for her. They had known each other for years before romance began. They reconnected, fell in love, got engaged, and married in 2013. Soon after, they welcomed 2 children, daughter River Rose and son Remington. For Kelly, who had spoken openly about the impact of divorce in her own childhood, building a family likely carried an emotional meaning that went far beyond celebrity milestones. This was not just a marriage. It was a chance to create the stability she had once lost. And for a while, from the outside, it looked like she had. She was recording music, coaching on The Voice, raising children, and eventually launching The Kelly Clarkson Show, a daytime program that quickly became one of the most successful projects of her career. The show revealed another side of Kelly's talent. She was not just a singer. She could connect. She could listen. She could make guests feel comfortable. She could turn a casual conversation into a viral moment because people trusted that her reactions were real. But while the show was thriving, her personal life was under strain. In June 2020, Kelly filed for divorce from Brandon Blackstock, citing irreconcilable differences. The split was not quiet. It became a long and emotionally draining public battle involving finances, business relationships, property disputes, and the Montana ranch Kelly considered her sanctuary. Legal filings and court decisions kept parts of the conflict in the headlines for years. For someone who had built a career on being open, this was a different kind of exposure. This was not vulnerability on her own terms. This was private pain becoming public record. And yet, in the middle of it all, Kelly did what she has always done when life becomes too heavy. She sang. Her album Chemistry was not presented as a simple breakup record. It was a map of emotional survival, anger, confusion, grief, resentment, acceptance. The complicated realization that even when a relationship ends for good reasons, the ending can still hurt. That is what made the album resonate. It did not pretend heartbreak was clean. There was no neat version of the story where everyone walked away untouched. There was no glamorous reinvention montage. There was simply a woman trying to make sense of what had happened, while continuing to work, parent, perform, and hold herself together in public. For Kelly, music became a place where she could say things that might have been impossible to explain in an interview. But the story became even more complicated. In 2025, Brandon Blackstock died after a battle with melanoma. The news changed the emotional meaning of everything that had come before it. No matter how difficult the divorce had been, he was still the father of Kelly's children. And suddenly, the legal conflict, the financial disputes, the years of headlines, all of it existed beside a much more painful reality. Her children had lost their father. For Kelly, the focus had to shift, not toward the public story, not toward gossip, not toward what people online might say about her past marriage, toward River and Remington. That is the part of her life that seems to define her most now. Not the awards, not the money, not the fame. Motherhood. Kelly has often spoken about the chaos of balancing work with school schedules, sports practices, family responsibilities, and the ordinary pressures of raising children. Her life may look extraordinary from the outside, but much of her emotional energy appears to be rooted in something very familiar. Trying to be present for her kids while carrying the weight of everything else. And that is why her current chapter feels different. Kelly Clarkson is not simply rebuilding a career after a difficult marriage. She is rebuilding a life. Professionally, she has never been more powerful. The Kelly Clarkson Show became an Emmy-winning daytime success, proving that her connection with audiences was not limited to music. She became one of the most recognizable and trusted voices on television, not because she acted like a polished host, but because she brought the same warmth and emotional instinct that had made people love her songs. Her Kelly Oak performances became their own phenomenon. One day, she could deliver a massive pop anthem. The next, she could sing a country classic. an alternative rock song, a soul ballad, or a track that had nothing to do with her own catalog, and somehow make it feel like it had always belonged to her. That ability is rare. Most singers are known for their songs. Kelly Clarkson is known for what she can do to any one song. Then came Las Vegas. For many artists, a residency can feel like a victory lap, a celebration of everything they have already done. But for Kelly, the Las Vegas stage has felt more like proof that her voice is still growing, still commanding rooms, still capable of turning old hits into new emotional moments. At Caesar's Palace, she performed songs from every chapter of her career: the teenage dreamer, the American Idol winner, the pop rock powerhouse, the heartbroken woman, the mother, the independent artist. Every era is there. And perhaps that is why the residency matters so much. It is not just a concert. It is a living timeline of someone who has survived every version of herself. The girl who left Texas for Los Angeles. The young woman who came home after rejection. The singer who won a competition no one knew would change the industry. The superstar who proved she was more than a reality show winner. The wife and mother who believed she had found stability. The woman who had to walk away when that stability disappeared. And now, the artist who seems increasingly determined to control what happens next. Launching her own independent label, High Road Records, was more than a business decision. It was a statement. After more than 2 decades in industry where artists are often shaped by executives, marketing plans, radio formats, and commercial expectations, Kelly chose ownership. She chose creative freedom. She chose the ability to release music without waiting for someone else to decide whether it fit a strategy. That move says a lot about where she is now. Kelly Clarkson does not appear interested in proving she can still compete with younger pop stars. She does not need to chase every trend. She does not need to convince people she is relevant. Her relevance is already built into the culture.